promised that NATO would not expand 1 inch eastward. Now, during the discussion surrounding German reunification in 1990, James Baker met with Gorbachev on February 9th. In this meeting, Baker suggested that NATO would not expand 1 inch eastward beyond its existing boundaries. The actual quote from Baker was, quote, "We understand that not only for the Soviet Union, but for other Eastern European countries as well, it is important to have guarantees that if the United States keeps its presence in Germany within the framework of NATO, not an inch of NATO's present military jurisdiction will spread in an eastern direction." Now, this claim from Baker was actually part of a broader negotiation aimed at securing Soviet consent for a unified Germany. However, this assurance was not formalized by any binding treaty, and the subsequent treaty on the final settlement with respect to Germany signed in September of 1990 did not include provisions restricting NATO's future expansion into Eastern Europe. And even if it did, it would have immediately been violated because the minute Germany reunified, NATO's coverage would have included former East Germany, which would mean they certainly expanded more than 1 inch eastward. Gorbachev knew this and even dismissed the fact that NATO would cover the entirety of reunified Germany as inconsequential. He actually assumed it would happen. Now, the absence of such a clause in the treaty indicated that Western allies did not commit to limiting NATO's enlargement beyond Germany at all. But since then, Russian officials have referenced Baker's "not 1 inch eastward" remark as if it were gospel to argue that NATO violated a supposed commitment by expanding into Eastern Europe. Now, this perspective has been utilized in Russian political discourse to suggest that they've been betrayed by the West. However, Western leaders consistently maintain that no formal agreement was made to limit NATO's expansion, and the decision of Eastern European countries to join NATO were based on their sovereign choices. In fact, the same day Baker got out of the meeting with Gorbachev, he was already walking back any discussion that said there was going to be limits on NATO's growth. Later in the week, President George Bush said the same thing. And frankly, Russia whining about this is ridiculous, as they have lied directly to our faces and flat out told us we should have gotten things in writing. Well, you should have gotten that in writing there too, Russia. So in summary, while verbal assurances were discussed, which happen all the time in diplomatic meetings, just like it did during the German reunification talks, they were not codified into binding agreements or treaties. The subsequent expansion of NATO into Eastern Europe was influenced by the evolving geopolitical landscape and aspirations of former Warsaw Pact nations to align with Western institutions. These countries asked, begged even, to join NATO, and nations still do. Why? Because they want protection from Russia, who obviously has imperial ambitions still to this day. So who can blame them?